Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we're having tea inside the Jasmine Dragon, everyone's favorite tea shop in Ba Sing Se. And we're going to be talking about some book recommendations based on your Avatar the Last Airbender bending type.
Water, earth, fire, air.
Okay guys, so I was inspired to do this video because I recently took one of those online quizzes that told you what type of bender you would be. And I got Earthbender, closely followed by a Waterbender, which I'm totally okay with. I love Earthbenders and Waterbenders. And so it just made me think about elemental magic, how much I love elemental magic in the stories I read. And so I wanted to come up with a list of books that either have elemental magic in them or are somehow related to elemental magic or the elements in general. And so I came up with this list for you guys, and I hope that you find something on it that interests you. The first element that I'm going to start with is going to be earth. So one of my favorite characters from Avatar the Last Airbender is going to be Toph. And she's a young girl from the Earth Kingdom, and she is so cool. She's a great fighter, and she does it all with a disability. Toph is blind, but she doesn't act like it. She uses it to her advantage, and she uses it to fight and kick butt in everything that she does. I love that Toph doesn't let Aang get away with his stuff, and she stands up to Sokka and any of the other enemies that come in their way. She is just a badass. And so when I was thinking about books for the Earth Kingdom, it made me think of another girl who's total badass, and that's going to be Vin from Mistborn. You might be thinking, wait, Mistborn doesn't have earth magic in it. And no, you're right, it doesn't. But what it does have is metal magic. And Toph was the creator / discoverer, first user of metal magic in the Avatar world. And so in Mistborn, we're following the story of Vin, this young girl who's a street urchin in Luthadel, this city. And she falls in with Kelsier and his band of revolutionaries. Now, Luthadel and the whole planet of Scadrial has been basically a wasteland ever since the Lord Ruler, the big, huge baddie, defeated the hero who was supposed to save the world 1,000 years ago. And so in the story, Vin and Kelsier and their band of revolutionaries are trying to take back the world from the Lord Ruler. Now, the reason why I think this is perfect for Earthbenders is because of allomancy. Allomancy is really complicated, but also really, really cool. Brandon Sanderson writes a lot of really inventive magic systems, and allomancy is no exception. In allomancy, people who can use that form of magic are able to ingest certain types of metals and then burn them. And by burning them, they obtain these powers that they can use. Now, each metal has different powers that it gives the user. And most people who have the ability to use allomancy can only use 1 or 2 metals, maybe. But our girl Vin, she's special. She's called a Mistborn, and that means that she can use all the different metals. So she's super powerful, and it's really fun in this story how Brandon Sanderson uses that. He's very inventive in the ways that he writes Vin using her magic, and it's just so fun. So if you're interested in metal bending or an earthbender who wants a really plucky, fun character, I would definitely suggest checking out Mistborn. So the second book I want to recommend is going to be The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. Now this story follows a girl named Lynn, not to be confused with Vin from Mistborn, as she is trying to recover the memories that she has mysteriously lost. She's the daughter of the emperor of this land, and she's trying to learn the bone shard magic that her father uses to keep their land safe. And he says that she can't continue to be his heir, and he won't pass the throne down to her if she doesn't recover these memories that she's lost. Now, he's not very helpful with this, and so there's something going on that she doesn't quite understand. And so the book follows her on her quest to recover these memories, and also as she learns this magic system. So bone shard magic is why I picked this for Earthbenders, and it's not your traditional earth magic. However, bone shard magic, what you do is you take literal pieces of bone and you put them together and create what's called a construct. It's some sort of creature that you make, and you imbue it with magic, and then it can take small, simple commands or more complex commands depending on the amount of magic you put into it. And so they can be used as guards, they can be used to attack people, they can be used for all sorts of different things. And so Lynn is trying to learn this so she can defend her kingdom. I really love the magic system in this. I think it's really cool. And if you think about it, when we go down into the ground, when we die, our bodies will disintegrate and we will become part of the ground again. So it's the circle of life, my Earthbender friends. The other really cool thing that I like about this book is the point of views that the author uses. So there's 5 main POVs that you see, and 2 of them, our 2 main characters, are actually in first person, whereas the other 3 are in third person. This sounds kind of weird, but for me, I thought that it worked out fairly well. I enjoyed it, and I didn't think that it jarred me out of the story, because it helped me kind of focus on the main characters when I was in their section, and then kind of kept the other 3 sort of a little bit more separate. I've never read anything like this, and I thought it was really interesting, and I hope that you enjoyed too. The third book that I'm going to recommend for Earthbenders is another book where you're going to say, well, there's no earth magic in this, and I will disagree with you. So not every type of earth elemental magic involves, moving big rocks and growing mountains out of the ground and stuff like they do in Avatar. A lot of the time it involves plants or trees, or it's about growing things, or grabbing people with vines and stuff. It has more to do with plants. And so in this story, we don't necessarily have magic users that use plants, but we do have magical plants. And that's going to be the Lord of the Rings, specifically the 2 towers, though you could say that the whole thing is one giant book. And in the Lord of the Rings, we have the Ents. Now, Ents are giant sentient trees, and they are Tolkien's way of having a conversation about environmentalism, about deforestation, and the negative effects of industrialization on the world. The Ents have been coming to life slowly, like they're waking back up, and then they're realizing what's going on in the land around their forest, and Sauron is turning the forest into basically like underground factories to create Uruk-hai and manufacture weapons, and the Ents are not about that at all, and they go and attack and kick major butt because their families are being destroyed. Now, if you've been hiding under a rock for the last 50 years and don't know what the Lord of the Rings is about, a really fast synopsis is that there is a band of 9 individuals made up of dwarves, elves, hobbits, and humans called the Fellowship of the Ring, and they are tasked with bringing the One Ring back to Mount Doom in the land of Mordor, casting it into the fire so that the Dark Lord Sauron does not regain his corporeal form, come back, and destroy all of Middle-earth. It's your traditional quest story. It is the granddaddy of all fantasy. I'm pretty sure almost every author has taken some sort of inspiration from this story. So I definitely think that The Lord of the Rings is a book for not just Earthbenders, but everybody. There's something in it for all. And it's just such a fun story. Tolkien's writing is beautiful, and I hope that if you have not read it, you will pick it up. That was the last of my Earthbender recommendations, and so now I'm going to move on to the next element, which is going to be water. So many of our favorite characters are waterbenders or from the water tribes. So we have Katara and Sokka from the main series, and then the next Avatar, Avatar Korra, is from the water tribe as well. Now, what I love about waterbenders is that there's kind of 2 sides to them, the yin and the yang, if you will. And they can be cool and calm and collected in one hand, and then when they get into fighting mode, or if you try to mess with someone that they care about, their claws will come out and they will go after you. They're loyal and they will not back down from a fight. They're not as stubborn as I think Toph and the Earthbenders are, but I wouldn't want to get on Korra's bad side, would you? So the first book I'm going to recommend for Waterbenders is actually going to be the David Bad Trilogy by S.A. Chakraborty. I only have the second book to show you. My other ones are packed away. But this story is beautiful. The writing that Chakraborty uses makes the settings lush, vibrant. Everything is just like it's a picture in your brain all the time. And what makes it unique is that it uses Middle Eastern and Indian mythology to fashion the story out of. I really like that because I'm a little bit tired of the like Arthurian legends or using like European myths. So this is just really fun and different. We follow the story of a young woman named Nari who lives on the streets of Cairo, Egypt in the 18th century. Now she's a charlatan. She gets by, performing fake healing rituals and reading palms and stuff. And when we meet her, she is doing a ritual in the middle of the night and accidentally summons a jinn. Now, in the story, jinn are also called devas, so if I use that word, that's what it means. The deva that she summons, his name is Dara, and he recognizes Nari. And the reason he recognizes her is because he is part of an ancient warrior race called the Afshin that served her family. She doesn't know this. Nari has no idea where she comes from. So she's like, I don't know who you are, and runs away and gets chased down by another magical being called an Ifrit. Dara swoops in, saves the day, and whisks her off to take her to the capital city of the Devas called Devabad, otherwise known as the City of Brass. That's where the book gets its title from. So Dara is bringing her back into the world of the Devas, and she has absolutely no idea what she's getting into. So once she gets to the city, she gets taken in front of the royal family and ends up being like half a guest and half at their mercy as a prisoner because they see her as a threat. So the first book revolves around her, trying to figure out who she is, what her family is, where she fits into Davis society now, and also trying to survive the palace and learn how to use this healing magic that is her family's legacy. And so, as far as waterbending is concerned, I think that this book fits really well, not just because of the healing magic aspect. So we all know our girl Katara is a really good healer. It also has a lot of magical beings, and one of those would be the Mareed. Now, it's a mythological creature, a water elemental spirit that's apparently malevolent, and no one's seen one in a really long time, but the myth is that there are Mareeds, or at least one Mareed, living in the lake that surrounds Devabad. And so throughout the 3 books, there's this subplot involving the Mareed and the water magic, and it's just really fun. So I think the healing magic and this water elemental aspect of the story make it perfect for waterbenders. The second book that I want to recommend to waterbenders is actually another trilogy, and that is the Shades of Magic trilogy by V.E. Schwab. And I was really drawn to this series because of the unique setting. Now, in the setting, you span 4 different Londons. And so the first one is Great London, and that's kind of like our real London. It's no magic, it's gray and drab. And the second one is going to be Red London. It's very lush, magic is very vibrant there. It has, all these beautiful colors and traditions. And then we have White London, where the magic is starting to die, and everything's really cold and stark and bright white, and it's very vicious. The royal family is actually ruled by a pair of twins, and they're absolutely ruthless. It's kind of terrifying in White London. And then the last one is Black London, and Black London has been destroyed by magic. We don't really know what destroyed by magic means, but it has been destroyed by magic, and no one is allowed to go there. And so our main character of the story, his name is Kel, and he lives in Red London, and he is the ambassador to the royal family because he is a special person called an Antari, and they're specific types of magic users that can travel between the different realms. They're the only people that can travel between. And so he carries messages back and forth for the king, and also has a side business being a smuggler. And so our story takes off when he is asked to carry a mysterious package between the different Londons. And when he does this, he gets chased down by people. And fleeing for his life, he runs into this thief in Grey London, and her name is Delilah Bard, and she steals the package that he has. And so she gets embroiled in this plot. And you find out that the artifact that he was supposed to be trafficking is actually from Black London, and everything that has been in Black London has been destroyed by royal decree across all of the different Londons. Like, no one's supposed to have any of these artifacts. And so the story is about Kel and Delilah and how they have to work to get this artifact back to Black London before magic starts unraveling across the other realms. The reason why I picked this for Waterbenders is because of the magic system the Antari use. It's actually blood magic. And so if you've seen The Legend of Korra, you know that Waterbenders are capable of blood bending, which, while illegal and highly unethical, goes right along with the Antari magic in this story. Cal has to be very careful about the types of magic that he uses and how he uses his magic, because in this story, magic doesn't need a human being to work. It kind of has its own essence, and that's how places get destroyed. And so I found that really intriguing. I like the writing. V.E. Schwab is really fun, and she really knows how to make a lot of stakes in the story. So I hope you check that one out. The third book, and the last book I want to recommend for Waterbenders, is another trilogy, and that would be the Live Ship Traders trilogy by Robin Hobb. Now, out of all of these books, the one that screamed Waterbenders the most to me is the Live Ship Traders, because Waterbenders rely heavily on their ships and on trade to make a living and survive. And so the live ships in this trilogy are made out of wizard wood and are actual sentient ships. So once a family has owned a ship for 3 generations and 3 generations of the family have died aboard the ship, then it becomes sentient through this process called the quickening. And then the ship can talk to you, it can help navigate, it becomes stronger, it becomes faster, and it's able to travel up the river that goes up to the Rain Wilds, which is where you can get wizard wood and other like magical artifacts and artifacts from ancient ruins and stuff that are, discovered and taken by the people who live in the Rain Wilds. So the story follows a girl named Althea who wants to inherit her family's ship. Her father, who is soon to pass away, will be the 3rd generation to die aboard this ship, so it's about to go through the quickening. And Althea has been preparing for this her whole life, and of course, the ship gets given to her sister and her sister's crappy husband. And so Althea is on a quest to get her family's ship back, and there's pirates involved, there's a trip to the Rain Wilds. It's just really fun, it's lush, it's very inventive. I think it's the most unique of Robin Hobb's stories, and I'm a huge Hobb fan. If you haven't read anything of her, you should read the Farseer trilogy after this. I love it so much. And I really don't think that I need to explain why this works for Waterbenders. So the Water Tribe, they make their living off of ships with trade and fishing, and that's how they survive, at least in the Southern Water Tribe. And so I think it just works perfectly. Plus, who wouldn't want a talking boat? Come on. So that's it for our Waterbender recommendations. I hope you enjoy them. I hope you found something interesting new to read. Next up is actually going to be a selection of recommendations for non-benders, because as we know from the Legend of Korra, there's a significant part of the population who might not have magical powers, and they deserve some recommendations as well. So when I was thinking about books to recommend for non-benders, I wanted the reasons for people to not have magic to be as diverse as the types of people who are non-benders. So in this first case, the Codex Alera series by Jim Butcher, we see this boy named Tavi who is simply not born with the ability to use magic like everybody else in his kingdom. In Alera, everyone has the ability to bond a Fury, and a Fury is an elemental spirit. So Tavi is the only one that he knows that does not have that, and he feels really out of place. So the story revolves around Tavi and his time with his aunt and uncle at their stronghold in the northern part of Alera, and the nation above Alera, the Marat, had invaded, and there was a big war a long time ago, and they killed the crown prince. When Tavi is out with his uncle in the forest, they see a Marat soldier and find out that the Marat is trying to invade again. And so Tavi and his uncle and the other people who live in his valley have to fight off the Marat. And so Tavi, instead of relying on his magical powers, has to rely on his intellect and his wits to survive and help keep his valley safe from the invading soldiers. From then on, throughout the story, it's about Tavi and his, journey as he grows up and the politics of this world. I found it really fun. The interesting thing is that Jim Butcher was actually dared to write this novel. The person from his writing group dared him that he could not write a story out of a lame idea. And so Jim Butcher decided that he was going to pick the 2 things that didn't make any sense, and that was the Lost Roman Legion and Pokemon. And from that came the Codex Alera, which was one of the first series that I read when I was young, and I really enjoyed it. So I hope that all of you non-benders out there will enjoy listening to Tavi's story and seeing how he overcame all these obstacles and came into himself even though he was the only one who doesn't have magic. The second book that I want to recommend for non-benders is going to be Spellslinger by Sebastian de Castell. In this story, we follow a boy named Kellen who is about to do his mage trials, which in his community, mage trials determine whether you're going to be a magic user in the community or become one of the shatep. Shatep are like servants. They do manual labor. They're the lowest of the low. No one wants to become a shatep, especially Kellen because he was born into an affluent family. So during the mage trials, he almost dies because his power has been depleted. His parents have been slowly taking it away over the years, he finds out. Because when he was an infant, he was banded with something called shadow black, which means he has access to this really, really dark magic, and his parents were afraid of that because it's kind of taboo in their society. And so they've been taking away his magic. When he almost dies, he's saved by this woman named Farius Parfax, who is a mysterious person called an Argosy, and they use this card magic, like playing cards, which is really, really cool. And they only come around when something very, very important to the world is about to happen. Either someone's going to do something, or someone is born, or someone's coming into who they are. So everyone's worrying, why is Farius Parfax here? Why isn't Argosy here? And so this story revolves around Kellen and how he goes off with various Parfax to kind of embrace his destiny and figure out who he is and maybe learn a little bit of this really cool card magic if he can, because he's had his magic taken away from him. Now in this story, there's kind of an annoying animal companion, but later on in the series, he gets better, and so I hope if you pick up Spellslinger, you don't put it down because of Rykus. But I think this story specifically brings a really cool aspect of emotion to having no magic, because in this case, Kellen was born into a world where he was able to use magic, and his parents, the people he was supposed to trust, took it away from him. And so it just adds another dimension to the story, and another dimension for those of you who feel like maybe something got taken away from you and now you don't fit in. The last book I'm going to recommend today is going to be The Arithmetist by Brandon Sanderson. Now, I'm a huge Brandon Sanderson fan. I know I already recommended one of his books in this video already, but this one's a lot different than that. It's YA, but it's more on the younger end of the spectrum, and it also has nothing to do with the Cosmere. So if you're a Brandon Sanderson fan, if you've read his stuff, you'll understand that he has an overarching universe. This is not part of that. The story revolves around Joel, a young boy who wants to become a arithmetist more than anything else in his entire life. In order to do this, he has to go through the induction ceremony to see if he is worthy of studying at the school. But the night before his induction ceremony, his father gets in a horrific accident and dies. And so Joel isn't allowed to go through his ceremony. He can't, and his dreams are dashed. He kind of brings himself back up and says, if I can't be a arithmetist, I guess I can study this magic. And so he goes and becomes a arithmetist scholar at the same school that all the other students who are arithmetists go to. And so while he's there, something mysterious starts to happen. Students of arithmetist magic start disappearing. So we kind of have this little bit of a murder mystery going on. And Joel himself gets embroiled in this investigation because he finds out that what's going on with these students has something to do with what happened to his dad. I don't want to tell anything else because I don't want to ruin anything for you, but the story is really fun. It has that mystery aspect to it. It has, really great friendships in it. And it's different than the other ones because Joel had this opportunity for this thing that he's dreamt of his entire life, and it was taken away from him because of something that was outside of his control. And I think all of us have gone through something like that, where there's something we really, really want, and then for some reason that we have nothing to do about, it's just completely taken away from us. So I think that non-benders, even benders, will understand and be able to sympathize with our main character here as he's trying to make the best of his life after his dream has been dashed. So that's all the recommendations I have for today. Thank you for joining me and having tea with me at the Jasmine Dragon. Next time, we're going to do the Firebenders, the Airbenders, and find book recommendations for the Avatar. So if you've liked this video, I hope you would please subscribe to my channel. I'm going to be putting out more content similar to this in the future, and I hope you have a wonderful day.